Greetings, everybody. I am the Starving Martian, and this is Collecting the Collective, where we take a look at everything Borg and determine whether or not it should be assimilated into your collection or if you should resist. Now, although we all know how futile that can be. So today we are looking at one of the more impressive display pieces I own. This, of course, is the Borg Sphere from the Star Trek First Contact movie. Technically, the toy itself is called the Borg Ship, but we all know it as the Borg Sphere. Before First Contact, Borg ships came in one basic shape, and that was cube. During the course of Star Trek The Next Generation, we had seen Borg cubes on several occasions. We saw a couple different sizes of Borg cubes, but they were all the same cube box kind of setup. And so it was something of a surprise in the early moments of the movie First Contact when one of the Borg cubes, under fire, before it explodes, a small panel opens up and out shoots this Borg sphere. And when I say small, I mean small compared to the rest of the cube. The Borg sphere itself is still rather large. Its diameter, the length of the thing is the same as that of the Enterprise E, which was the Enterprise that was introduced in the movie Star Trek First Contact. So it's the same length as the Enterprise, but obviously being a sphere has much more mass. The Borg sphere can hold up to 11,000 drones, according to the Borg Queen in an episode of Star Trek Voyager. And yeah, it looks deceptively small because you see it ejecting out of the Borg cube, but it is quite massive in its own right, and it got its own toy. So I'm not sure if you would call this exactly it's not a figure, obviously. It's not a play set. It doesn't open up. There's nothing that connects to or flies out of this thing. It's just a plastic representation of the Borg sphere. And if we turn it around, we can see all the detail. And they did a rather nice job on this detail. You can see tubes, conduits, wiring, whatever that little thing is up there. It's not completely film accurate, and I think the color they chose, I think, is a little too dark. In fact, on the box for this sucker, it's more of a darkish gray than this light black. But it's got a plethora of colors. You can see some gray, some silver, some copper or bronze running through it. And like any true Borg vessel, there's no real way of knowing whether you're looking at the top or the bottom, the front or the side, because it's just, the Borg aesthetic is very, non-aesthetic, if that makes any sense. So this thing does have a couple action features that it comes with, and alright, you know the issues that I generally have with action features on these toys. The spring-loaded gimmicks, the lights and sounds, they don't always work still all these years later. I bought this on eBay, and it came in a box that was open, but the parts were all inside, and some of the parts were still in their plastic bags, so it looked like it hadn't even been touched, like somebody opened it up to make sure that it was all there. Even so, the action features on this don't work as well as I would hope. So I will say the nice thing about these action features is unless you know exactly where to look, it's hard to see where they are. But it does come with lights and sounds and a spring-off panel. This panel is right here, and the button for it is right here. And the idea is you're supposed to hit the button to eject the panel. It's supposed to simulate damage to the sphere, similar to the dino damage you would see on Jurassic Park toys. So let's go ahead and push this button in. Ready? And nothing happens. Again, this toy looked, aside from the box being open, brand new, untouched, and taking it out, this gimmick's already busted. But pushing that in does allow you to come in with your fingernails and pull the panel off. So this is the damage that you would get. I'm not crazy about that blue paint going on around here. It looks a little artificial to me, but you see what they were going for. So the Borg Sphere gets damaged. It loses part of its plating, and you can see some of what's going on inside of the sphere. Now, up here is 3 buttons, and each one is supposed to give you a different noise, a different sound. For example, according to the instructions, it has Borg laser cannons, enemy firing with explosion, and Borg engines. It's a little disappointing that there's no voice. I would like to have heard the classic, we are the Borg, resistance is futile coming out of this thing. But then that doesn't really matter either, because only one of these 2 buttons works, or 3 rather. Only one of these 3 buttons works, and I don't know why. Usually in this sort of thing, the culprit is, batteries that have, leaked and corroded the inside, the wiring and stuff. The batteries in this were dead, but surprisingly not corroded. And I put in fresh batteries, and I get one of these things to work. So obviously nothing in here is corroded. I'm assuming it must have been jostled. Some of the wiring is loose inside of there, and I wouldn't even know where to begin to open it up to fix that. So we're going to have to make do with sound number 2, enemy firing with explosion. It's the only one that works, but let's see if we can't get this, because it's got this thing going on. I have to pop this button back up before the light gimmick will work, and I don't know why that is. Yeah, man. Yeah, it kind of gets stuck. There we go. And you have to pop it out. Okay, so now that we've done that, we can go ahead and hit this button, and you'll see some lights flash in the damage section. And that's the sound we get. That apparently is enemy firing with explosion. Alright, so now that we've popped this button back into place, the panel should snap right back on. And we are never touching that again. So for the rest of the toy, you can see it's on this base with a rather nice Borg insignia right there. It does detach from the base, and we'll show you that now. Just simply pull it up and off, and there you go. So the base is a separate part. Put that to the side, and you could move your Borg Sphere around. This is the hole that the base plugs into. It's also the battery cover. And if you don't like your Borg Sphere having a hole in the bottom and you don't want to use the base, the toy actually comes with a spare battery cover, one without the hole on it. So you could use this if you don't want to plug it into the base, which is a very nice touch. Always glad when they give you those extras. But for the purpose of display, I think we're just going to keep it on the stand. There we go, plugs right back in. Nice and easy. As far as size goes, there's nothing I can really compare it to. It's not in scale with anything at all whatsoever. Here is our average next generation Borg. And as you can see, he would be Godzilla size if you were to put the 2 of these together. So it doesn't really scale, or it rather doesn't really scale with anything. It's not supposed to. I don't even know if it would have scaled with any of the Enterprise ships that were put out, but it wasn't really meant to be played with. I don't think so much, even though it has a couple action figures or action features, as much just put on the base and displayed. The Star Trek toys were very much adult collector oriented, and I know a lot of kids bought them and played with them and enjoyed them. But but if you notice, a lot of the toys, the Playmates ones, they would come with things like special collectors editions, and there'd be blurbs on the packaging saying, individually numbered for the collector and things of that nature. So I think that's what this was mostly aimed towards. And yeah, I do remember first time I saw the Borg Sphere just being completely blown away because, oh my goodness, it's not a cube. Believe it or not, that was big back in the day. So yeah, before the previews would spoil everything being posted online and everything. Um, Borg Sphere also has an interesting property where it, at least the one in the movie, had some time travel capability, and it's never shown again. I imagine if the Borg could just time travel at will, like the galaxy would have no chance at all whatsoever. So maybe it was just this particular one. Um, Slight spoiler alert, but yeah, the Borg Sphere isn't in the movie First Contact very long. It does get itself blowed up. Although the wreckage from this particular Borg sphere would end up in a Star Trek Enterprise episode. Um, so there is that. The Borg spheres would also be used later in the TV show Star Trek Voyager, and a lot of things that were introduced in First Contact would come back in Voyager. In fact, I think we probably saw more Borg spheres in Voyager than we really did Borg cubes. But that's a discussion for another day. And that about covers it for the Borg Sphere. So, do I recommend picking up a Borg Sphere? Can we assimilate this into our collections or not? Well, price is an issue. Brand new Borg Sphere is going to run you between $60 and $80 online usually. Used one you might be able to get for between 30 to 50. I already told you the state I found this one in. It was listed as used because the box was open, but it looked barely touched. On the other hand, the gimmicks don't work, so who can say? I got mine for $35 after shipping, which I think was a fair price. But again, it's a big black ball. It doesn't do anything, and if you don't put it on the display stand, it's just going to roll around. It doesn't scale with anything. If you are a Borg collector, I would think that this is essential. If you can get it at a good price, go ahead. Usually, I would say when you're buying Borg, get it brand new. But if you could get this one used with the base, and you're not worried about whether or not the electronics work, pay as little as you can for it. It's not the greatest toy ever made, but for as I said, the adult collector, it does get the point across. It is a nice representation of the sphere, and um, I do rather enjoy it. It is one of the first things you see when you look at my Borg collection. When you look at the shelf where I have all my Borgs lined up, it does catch the eye quite nicely. So I'm going to give it a tentative assimilate it into your collection. It's not a must-have item, especially at the prices you're going to find, but if you get a good deal on this thing, yeah, pick it up. So this has been the Starving Martian. Next week we will be taking a look at one of the very few female Borg figures out there, but until then, we'll catch up with you next time. Keep a watch in the skies.